Well, hello, I'm Nolan Dalla with PointSpreads.ca. We're here with Slapshot, a weekly show on NHL hockey, and it's great to be talking hockey again after the 3 or 4 month layoff. We're going to have the playoffs coming up here, and I have two guests tonight from Las Vegas. These are experts on the Las Vegas, and I will say the Las Vegas Golden Knights. I know that's not proper; it's the Vegas Golden Knights. But these are people in the locker room. They know the team. They've been there since day one, covering the Golden Knights. Let me introduce both of our guests tonight. Joe Payne, originally from Brooklyn, New York, grew up with the New York Rangers, was a police officer for many, many years, and was wounded in the line of duty, one of New York's finest, and moved here to Las Vegas. Has since done a lot of things in gaming, gambling, the casino industry. He's also joined the Vegas Golden Knights since day one as one of the best beat reporters in the game that covers the Knights. He talks to the coach after every win, after every loss. He's even been controversial. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. And Joe, it's really, really nice to have you with us. I also got to do one thing. I got to plug this fantastic book that you really have to read if you're into hockey and the excitement of that NHL first season here in Las Vegas. It's the Vegas Golden Knights, how a first-year expansion team healed Las Vegas and shocked the hockey world. A great paperback. I think it's a paperback now. It's online. Oh, I'm exhausted here just introducing you, Joe. You got so much. Nice to see you, Joe Payne.
Good to see you, Nolan, and thank you for inviting me.
And our next guest is Eddie Rivkin. Eddie is originally from Detroit. As a Detroit Red Wings fan, we won't hold that against him. And he's watched the Red Wings win 4 Stanley Cups. That was a long, long time ago, wasn't it, Eddie? Anyway, he's played hockey. He was, and when he was 6 years old, he scored 5 goals in his very first game. Is that really true? Is that really true, Eddie?
An absolute, honest to God truth. As a 6-year-old, 5-0, and I put all 5 in the basket.
And it's been all downhill ever since.
Straight downhill.
Anyways, from Detroit, has been in Las Vegas for 30 years, covers the Vegas Golden Knights, was with the Hockey Writers, the HockeyWriters.com, covering the Golden Knights. So, gentlemen, I'm so excited to have you here. Let me, we're going to talk mostly Golden Knights, but NHL. Let's talk about the layoff. And it's middle of the summer here. It's blazing hot. What has the layoff done for the Golden Knights? Does it help them? Does it hurt them as far as they were one of the hottest teams in the league when the NHL season was suspended? How does this affect the Golden Knights in the playoffs? Joe, you start, please.
Okay, I actually think this is probably the best thing that could have happened to the Golden Knights. They have been kind of injury plagued the whole entire season. I don't think there was a game where they had a complete lineup. And towards the end there, you had Pacioretty was out, Stone was hurt. They just had a number of injuries. Well, all those injuries, other than Cody Glass, all these players are back and healthy now. Tuck hopefully will regain his form, because if in fact the Knights are a healthy team, Nolan, I think they're a big favorite to go all the way and complete what they fell 3 games short back in 2018 against the Washington Capitals.
Eddie, agree, disagree?
I agree. I agree completely. I think that even though they were 15-5-2 since Pete DeBoer took over in the beginning of January, he never really had his whole team. They were always moving up and down the 2C spot. He was always sort of searching for the right thing. And as bad as the layoff has been on all of us, to get those 3 guys healthy again, and then to have basically a full training camp with Coach DeBoer, I think is a tremendous upside. Some of the other teams obviously benefited St. Louis by getting Tarasenko back, things like that. But the Golden Knights got 2/3 of their top line and a young stud of a right wing who should, if he's healthy, add some scoring depth, which is much needed in the playoffs.
And Nolan,
yeah, go ahead, Joe.
To touch upon what Eddie just said also, is that with DeBoer, he has a totally different system than Gallant had. And he never really had a chance to implement the system. He would put it in bits and pieces as the games went by, and if they had an off day or two. what this break in action and this 3-week training camp that they're going to have is DeBoer is going to be able to really implement his complete system in a fluid motion as opposed to, staggered steps. And you understand that these 23 players had gone from one complete system to another. And you can see the difference in how they're moving the puck out of their zone, where they weren't doing that. They did that with Gallant during the first year with their stretch passes, which drove the other teams absolutely crazy. But in year 2, the teams made adjustments to that. Well, DeBoer now has a system that they're using the wall more to bring the puck out of the defensive zone, which they weren't doing under Gallant, and that was causing a lot of turnovers in their own zone.
I got to ask you a follow-up on the Gallant situation. I know that here's why I wanted you on this show, because, Joe, you were very outspoken as a beat reporter for the Golden Knights. In fact, when the coaching change was made in January, you took some heat because you said, hey, like a lot of us, I was like, what the hell are they doing? You wrote publicly and, again, took some heat. Never mind that, but now would you say that coaching change was maybe the right decision?
It sure looks like maybe I was wrong. DeBoer, he's had success, but Gallant, I mean, you can't go wrong with what Gallant did with this team. He took a bunch of, and I'll steal the quote. He took a bunch of misfits, put them together, and they really did. They were, and I get a little rough in the boots when I hear everybody outside of Vegas complaining about the expansion draft, that we had a huge advantage. No, we didn't. And what people fail to realize is that prior to the Knights coming into the league, there hadn't been an expansion team since 2000. So all these other 30 teams had 17 years to stockpile talent. So guys like William Karlsson, who was relegated to a 4th line only because of he just couldn't break the lineup. But when you give him a chance to play like Gallant did, I mean, the man was just incredible his first year. I think he scored like 43 goals in his first year. He didn't score that many in his whole combined career back in Columbus. So I think what's going on now is that, and I got to give George McPhee credit here. He used the expansion draft. He couldn't have played it any better.
He outsmarted all of them.
He did. He really did.
I mean, he should be arrested for how he robbed Minnesota and Florida. I mean, to pick up Riley Smith and Marchessault from Florida for a song and a dance and like a 4th-round pick. I mean, he should be cuffed.
And then and Fleury, who is the foundation of this organization, Pittsburgh begged McPhee to take Fleury and actually gave him, besides Fleury, gave him another draft pick on top of that. So, and Fleury is, I mean, what can you say about that? And what's really strong about Vegas right now, and I think, Eddie, you agree, they probably have the best goaltending tandem in the entire league right now. And championships, and Nolan, you know this in football also, and because you're good, your stuff in football. Defense wins championships. And between the 2 goaltenders that Vegas will have in this playoff, as long as neither one of them get hurt, boy, DeBoer has got a huge weapon right there. Huge weapon, because like you say, goaltending wins championships.
Well, in the Western Conference, who is the team that you think it's been San Jose, I guess, for the first year or two, but now who stands in the way in the Western Conference as far as getting to the finals? Obviously, the East is a whole nother thing. But Eddie, you go first on this one.
I think in the West, you just have to look at the round robin, the top 4. I think not as afraid of Dallas, and the Knights have had some decent success against St. Louis, albeit in overtime this year. But Colorado's kicked their ass up and down the rink a couple of times this year. And that's a matchup I would prefer not to see. I'd like it if it reseeded so St. Louis and Colorado could kill each other for about 7 games. And we'll pick up what scrap is there. But for the Knights, I think the biggest potential problem is in Colorado. They can play physical with St. Louis. They can play faster than Dallas. And I don't think any of the other teams are really a huge threat. There might be a dark horse out there, but I think the top four is really where the action is in the West.
Joe?
Well, the only thing I disagree here is that Edmonton, the speed of Edmonton between Draisaitl and McDavid, that will, if there's a problem for Vegas, it's their speed. Okay, because the one weak link on the Vegas Golden Knights, and I think Eddie will agree with this, is their defensive core. They're a little slow, especially when you get to the second and third pairing. So if you can get the line matchups, if Edmonton, if they happen to play Edmonton with the proper line matchups, I think Edmonton will cause a problem for the defensive core of the Vegas Golden Knights. That, like I say, that's always been the Achilles heel, in my opinion, of the Vegas Golden Knights. They're fine up front. They got, terrific scorers up front, but their defense, I mean, you got Derek Engelland, he's the heart and soul of the team other than Fleury, but he's slowing down, and this is probably going to be his last year, even though he says he thinks he has 1 or 2 years left. So I don't know. He might have 1 or 2 years left in the management role in the Vegas Golden Knights, but, possibly with the Silver Knights moving to Henderson, maybe I see him in that kind of capacity, but I don't.
Right, so we covered the West somewhat here. You both are, I guess all three of us, East Coast guys. I mean, you grew up with the Rangers, and obviously, Eddie, we talked about the Red Wings, but it looks like out of the Eastern Conference, the Boston Bruins, maybe the Capitals, certainly a threat, it would seem.
Yeah.
Give me a pick out of the Eastern Conference.
Go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to say Boston had the best record in the league going, once the shutdown came, and they got good scoring. They have great goaltending. They're a threat, and there's a lot. I think one of your guests, I think it might have been Greg Mueller, said he thought he saw a Boston Vegas Golden Knights Stanley Cup final on your first show, and
That's right.
You know what? I could see that. I can definitely see that because Boston is a strong team.
I think what I really want to see in the East is how does Tampa Bay respond to what happened to them last year? We all know that they can dominate the regular season, but the choke job they pulled against Columbus last year it's just hard to explain. I think, from a writer's standpoint, how can you not want to see a rematch with the Capitals? You've got Holtby and you've got Lerner, both of them singing for their supper. They're both going to be unrestricted free agents. The magic run of the Golden Knights the first year in Vegas, I think it's more likely to be Boston, but for the amount of words I could write about a rematch and maybe a parade down Las Vegas Boulevard, I would like to see them. I would like to see the Capitals.
You talked about the Columbus Tampa Bay matchup last season, and it's funny that the last 3 cups we've had, surprise teams. The Blues, no one saw the Blues coming out of nowhere. When they won, and obviously the Golden Knights the first season. Give us the dark horse from either conference or both conferences if you want to. Who's the team to watch? And by the way, when you go through this, think about how the layoff could really make this. If there was a wild card before, it's really a wild deck now with so much uncertainty. Talk about the long shots in each conference if you can.
You want to go first, Eddie, or ahead?
I think in the West, maybe Vancouver, just because that giant goalie of theirs can probably, if he gets hot, he can be a complete difference maker and maybe go far with them. They've got a lot of young talent, but I'm old and I'm old school. I don't think that the first time you get there, you win. St. Louis did last year, but St. Louis had a bunch of veterans, and the thing that kind of, the eerie factor is they made a coaching change too, right in the middle of the season. They were 31st in the league at the end of January, and the next thing you know, they're hoisting the cup. So maybe Vancouver in the West. In the East, honestly, I don't have any idea. I don't know how you say a team with Austin Matthews is a dark horse, but it would be surprising if Toronto actually got their act together and started playing to their potential, they could make a run maybe.
Yeah, I agree with Eddie. Toronto's got a ton of talent, and they've been the brides, and they always seem to run into Boston at the wrong time. I mean, I think it was a couple of years ago they were up 3-0 in a deciding game, and I think was it 3-0, Eddie, or 3-1, and
they gave it away.
They just self imploded. They do have a huge payroll, and they played a lot of players a lot of money. It would be a shame to not see Toronto at least get. I mean, Toronto's always never gets out of the first round. It's just crazy. Toronto and Tampa Bay are just snake bitten when it comes to playoffs. And I think what we have this year, instead of the normal 16 teams that qualify for the playoffs, Nolan, they've thrown 8 additional teams in. So basically, 24 of the 31 teams have a shot at the Stanley Cup. Now, there are people that are saying that this year's winner is going to be a stigma to it because they didn't complete the whole season. And here's what I'm going to say that's nonsense, because the year after the Rangers won the Cup, there was a work stoppage. And the season of 94-95, where the New Jersey Devils won the Stanley Cup, they only played 48 games that season. And they won the Cup, and there's never any conversation about, well, when the Devils won, they didn't really play a full season. Now, keep in mind, most of the teams this year played, I think the Knights had like 11 games left to play. So pretty much the teams have played close to 85% of the season. And what I think the league wanted to do is that there were teams, it was close on the wild card. And they didn't want to just say, we're going to just stop the standings at this point and go from there, because you're not giving teams that, maybe 1 or 2 points out of a wild card spot. So they just threw in the extra 8 teams, which is really making this a total crapshoot. So when you ask for a dark horse, who knows what could happen? This is like buying a lottery ticket to win this Stanley Cup this year.
Here's what I know for sure. I've seen the Stanley Cup this far away. I've never seen an asterisk on it. Believe me, the team that skates that cup, they're not going to care if they played 68 games, 71 games, if there was a coronavirus, or when they got it. Believe you me. Is it a little different? Sure. It's a lot different. It's a whole different world we're living in. But I don't think for 1 second that there's any taint or any stain or anything when it comes to the team that's going to hoist that cup, I guess on October 2nd they're talking about now.
Well said. Very well said. I'm here with Eddie Rivkin, the native of Detroit, lives in Las Vegas now, covers the Vegas Golden Knights. Joe Payne, originally from Brooklyn, New York, grew up with the Rangers, and also now covers the Golden Knights. I have to ask more of a personal question about your lifestyle. And you guys seem to have, I think for any sports fan, to be able to go to all the games and walk into the locker room after every game, win or lose, to talk to the players, see them in action, talk to the coach. I mean, this sounds like, if you're growing up in sports, you kind of want to be in the dugout with the team, or you want to be on the sideline, or you want to be in the locker room. I mean, that's as good as it gets. Do you have to just pinch yourself and say this is the greatest thing? I mean, I got to hear from both of you about what it's like to. You guys shouldn't be paid, by the way. How do you not do this for free?
Nolan, I was just gonna say this. I won't repeat this out loud, but I would do this job for free. It really. I mean, and Eddie and I were talking about that. We thought there was a possibility when they do resume play that it was going to be closed to the general public, but we thought that they might let some media members in to watch the game. And we thought, how great is this? Yeah. We're going to be a select maybe 18 or 20 people who are watching hockey live. And I think Eddie will back me up on this. Watching hockey on TV does it no justice. Watching a game live, it's just, and I've told people, go to a hockey game and buy your tickets. And if you don't like it, watching it live, I'll refund the money. And I've had people say, refund the money? Oh my God, I can't wait to go to my next game. So it's just an incredible, and how Vegas got spoiled was, you have to understand, there are a lot of transplant here, guys like Eddie and I who know about hockey, but there are a lot of people who had never been to an NHL game. Well, they got spoiled, Nolan, because what they saw and what they experienced, cities go 20, 30 years without ever having an experience like that. And as a beat writer, both Eddie and I had the experience of not only being part of it, but being on the inside of it, which is just like, you're right. I'm pitching myself, this is my job? It's like, I can't wait to get up in the morning and go, it's great. And I've gone on a couple of the road trips with the team too.
Wow.
So it's just an incredible experience. And like I said, like I told you, my dad took me to my first game when I was 9 years old. And I loved the game hockey, but I could never skate. And I didn't start skating until I was in my 30s. And now I still play nowadays, but I didn't score 5 goals like Eddie did. I don't think I've scored 5 goals in my entire career. Eddie doesn't tell you that Swiss cheese was in the nets when he scored the 5 goals.
I was a big 6-year-old, pal.
Oh, well. So it's Nolan, like you said, interacting with the players who, in my opinion, are just, they're total gentlemen. I've dealt with other professional athletes. Hockey players are far and above. They're just good guys. They're family men. They're family men who basically, for the most part, all grew up on a farm. So they weren't coddled like baseball players are and football players, where everybody just rolls down the red carpet. These guys basically got up, did their chores on the farm, went and skated, and came home, went to school, and then after school was skated in their back to the rink that their dad flooded the backyard with. So these guys came from nothing. So whatever they have, they appreciate. Where in the other major sports like baseball, basketball, and football, these guys are just, they're treated like kings. You know what I mean? So
well, some baseball players came from the Dominican Republic. It wasn't like, like Canada up there. So.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah, but Nolan, but once they got there, they're kings back in the Dominican Republic.
Fair enough. Eddie, yeah. I'm guessing you agree with everything Joe said, at least for the most part. Yeah.
Well, I was just wondering how we get paid. But yeah, absolutely. You like Joe said, there's a lot of transplants here, and every now and then I find myself getting a little bit frustrated listening to them sort of bloviate about hockey and stuff like that. But then I say, you know what? I have something that they'll never have, and I'm incredibly fortunate to have it. And I just try to share insights about the game and present the game in a way that a brand new fan can understand it. And the people who have been around hockey see the story that I'm trying to tell. And to be able to sit up in the press box at the top of T-Mobile Arena, and Joe and I were there the night that Fleury made the save against Toronto. And, in the press box, you're supposed to be impartial, and you just kind of sit there and you do your job. Literally, the entire press box jumped out of their chairs. And it was just those kind of experience you try to translate and share with people who read what you write. But, for Joe and I sitting next to each other in the press box, it was really one of the coolest highlights of our friendship.
It was good where Eddie and I sit. Our seats are directly in front of the visiting team's TV production. So we get to hear the play-by-play from some guys that we grew up with, and it's just incredible hearing the play-by-play, because in the press box, you don't get play-by-play, you kind of just observe. But we have the luxury where our seats are located in the press box. We get to hear the actual play-by-play by some pretty knowledgeable road team announcers,
That was pretty great. And I grew up in Detroit listening to Hockey Night in Canada on Channel 9. And next thing I know, Hockey Night in Canada is literally right behind our head. I think they call it TSN now. But anyway, every Saturday night in Detroit, you would get Leafs Canadians. And then if you could stay up late, you would get a Vancouver game or something like that. But the opportunity to watch the game and know what you're watching, but listen to Hockey Night in Canada live and then go see them at the popcorn machine between periods.
Yeah.
You can't, there's no way to really extrapolate that and make hockey people understand what a thrill it is for something I've had my whole life.
Yeah,
gentlemen, thank you so much. I've got to thank you for coming on. This half hour just flew by. I knew it would.
Are we
I'd
done
like
already?
to ask you a favor, and if you come on, we have the playoffs coming up. Let's hope things go smoothly and we have games and series and eventually have a Stanley Cup winner. So, gentlemen, I'd love to have you back on and maybe break down some of the series. We're going to do more of a gambling angle, like, hey, let's look at this series. Let's cap it. I'm sorry, I should say handicap it. And I'd like to get your input on that if you would come back on in the future. Thank you very much, Eddie Rivkin, Joe Payne, two of the best. Please check out the site at pointspreads.ca, and you can read the bios there and links to where these gentlemen do a lot of writing and coverage of the NHL. Two of the best in the game. Gentlemen, thank you again for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Nolan, thank you very much. And Eddie, thanks for coming along.
Outstanding. All right, I'm Nolan Dalla for pointspreads.ca. You can see the odds, latest odds at spreads.ca. That's SPREADS. That's in English or in Quebecian or whatever they speak in Quebec. That's the latest odds where you can make a wager if you care to. And if not, just turn on and watch the games like all of us and enjoy the action in the NHL. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. I'm Nolan Dalla for Slapshot, and we'll see you next time.